Carol is 24, at her mother's kitchen table in 1954, 1 week before her wedding. A pencil, a small advice pamphlet, a cup of coffee, a compact mirror. She underlines a line she barely understands. This isn't romance advice. It's an instruction manual for managing a man's mood, his appetite, his body, with her own listed last. Number 1 reveals the exact word used against any wife who didn't comply. Number 12, the dinner that had to be ready. The pamphlet's first line is the easiest one. Have dinner ready. Plan ahead, even the night before. Carol underlines it without thinking twice. It sounds like hospitality. It wasn't. A late dinner, a cold plate, a kitchen not squared away by 6. These were read as a wife who couldn't keep house. The clock on the wall wasn't just telling time. It was setting a deadline she hadn't agreed to. Carol taps her pencil against the page. The dinner was easy. The next line was not. Number 11, building his ego, not hers. The next line asks her to protect his morale. His confidence gets bruised in business, it says. Hers, apparently, does not need mentioning. Carol reads it twice, unsure what it means for her own bad days. This wasn't affection. It was assignment. If he came home defeated, that was hers to fix. If she came home defeated, the pamphlet had nothing to say about it. Her exhaustion wasn't in the plan. His was the whole plan. And that was before the list even got to the bedroom. Number 10. Let him relax first. A folded newspaper by the door. A chair he'll sink into before anyone speaks. The pamphlet tells her to let him unwind before raising any family concern. Carol pictures a man she hasn't married yet. Already exhausted. Already first. Bringing something up too soon read as nagging. Waiting for the right moment read as good sense. Even the timing of her own voice wasn't fully hers to choose. The front door hadn't opened yet. The rule was already in the room. Number 9. Have sane views about sex. Here the pencil presses harder. Have sane views about sex, the pamphlet says, and nothing else. No definition, no explanation. Carol reads it a third time, searching for the part that tells her what sane actually looks like. It isn't there. That was the design. Nobody wrote down what sane meant, which meant anyone could decide she'd missed it too eager, too reluctant, too anything at all. A vague word does more work than a specific one. It can't be argued with, because it was never actually said. The line tore slightly under her pencil. Nobody had explained it to her yet. Nobody ever fully would. Number 8. Harmony meant his comfort. The very next line follows like a hinge. Marital relations promote harmony, it says, as though sex were a household chore beside the ironing and the floors, not desire, maintenance. Carol notices the two lines sit together on purpose, sane views, then harmony, one requiring the other. Her own feelings on the matter were never really the subject. Her cooperation was. And if harmony ever failed in a marriage, the pamphlets and the columns behind them already knew exactly whose fault that would be. Number 7. The tiredness that wasn't allowed. Before bed, Carol checks her compact mirror for shadows under her eyes. The pamphlet warned her about this too. No man likes a wife who is always tired out, it says. Conserve your energy for his companionship, not for the housework that caused the tiredness in the first place. Her exhaustion wasn't proof of labor. It was a personal failing to hide with powder. Until now, the rules lived inside her compact, her handbag, her own kitchen. The rules waiting past this point belonged to offices that kept files. Number 6, the column that graded real marriages. At the table, Carol's mother reads aloud from a folded magazine page. Can this marriage be saved? The headline says Ladies' Home Journal, running since 1953, written by Dorothy Cameron Disney alongside a counselor named Paul Popenoe, of something called the American Institute of Family Relations in Los Angeles. Popenoe held an honorary degree, not a clinical one. Yet millions of readers treated his verdicts as medical fact. This is where the advice stopped being anonymous. A private argument between two strangers became a public lesson for every wife reading at her own kitchen table. Number 5. The verdict that blamed the wife. One documented case, from May of 1953, tells of a wife named in the column as Amy and a husband named Joe who had an affair. The counselor's judgment didn't land on Joe. It landed on Amy for failing to give him enough warmth at home. The affair was his. The lesson assigned was hers. Carol's mother reads this out like ordinary wisdom, not injustice. Nobody in the room questions it. If infidelity could be filed under a wife's failure, almost anything else in a marriage could be too. Number 4, the report that changed the question. A different headline, argued over at a family gathering down the hall. Alfred Kinsey's 1953 study on women's sexuality found that roughly 1 in 10 married women reported never experiencing orgasm during intercourse. The finding should have raised a question about husbands, about technique, about expectation. Instead, it raised a question about wives: how to seem normal, how to seem willing, how to seem sane, in exactly the word the pamphlet had never bothered to define. The bigger the survey grew, the smaller each woman's own explanation became. Number 3. The word used against her. An aunt, at the same gathering, uses one word about a neighbor's failing marriage: frigid. Said flatly, over coffee, the way you'd mention the weather. In the same counseling culture behind that magazine column, wives who complained, who resisted, who simply weren't happy, were often labeled childish, immature, or frigid, sometimes even when the documented complaint involved a husband's temper or worse. The word wasn't a diagnosis, it was a door closing. Once it landed on a woman, nobody needed to examine the man standing beside her. And that explains exactly why sane, back on the pamphlet, was never given a definition. Vague words end conversations. Defined ones invite defense. Number 2. The machinery behind the pamphlet. Carol's small pamphlet, folded inside her hope chest, suddenly looks smaller than it is. It wasn't a private opinion from one publisher. It was one piece of a much larger, self-reinforcing print culture advice lists, national magazine columns, quasi-professional counselors, and a widely discussed sex survey, all pointed at the same target. Nobody had to coordinate any of it. A pamphlet in a Los Angeles hope chest and a column read by millions were saying the same thing in different fonts, which finally explains what that word, sane, was actually built to protect. Not her health, not her honesty. His comfort, dressed up as her responsibility. Number 1. Sane meant compliant. Go back to the underlined line. Have sane views about sex. It never asked about her body, her health, or her happiness. It asked for one thing only: agreement, offered without complaint. That's what sane meant, in a system built by pamphlets, magazine columns, and a counselor with no clinical training standing in as a national authority. It required no evidence of a real problem. It only required a word, applied to a woman, by anyone standing near her: a husband, an aunt, a counselor with a column read at 4 million kitchen tables. The work of a marriage was real. The affection was often real too. But the standard she was held to was never actually written down anywhere she could challenge it. That was the design, not an accident. A rule nobody has to defend is a rule nobody can argue with. Carol closes the pamphlet and slides it into the linen. She doesn't fully understand it yet. She will. Years later, Carol finds the same pamphlet in a drawer, dust on its cover, the pencil marks still visible. The written rules are easy to spot now. The unwritten ones were stronger, because nobody ever had to defend them. If a pamphlet, an old magazine, or a line like this sounds like your mother or grandmother, tell us below and follow us to the next rule waiting to be found.